Can we shut the window? The first photo I can think of that really mattered to me was a fairly simple photo I took of my dad and my baby sister on a family holiday in Amsterdam. So I was 11, 12 years old, but it was at the time that I realized I didn't want to be in family photos on holiday, and I thought the easiest way to do that was to take my dad's camera. So I took charge, and that holiday I had the camera with me and I was obsessed with it. It was a manual SLR, and I was obsessed with the aperture and the focus and just the mechanical movements of everything. And this viewpoint that it gave me on a fixed 50mm lens, I just started to see life through this lens. And it was a photo that mattered to me because it was the start of my journey where I started to see the world through a lens. Yeah, photography has always largely been initially about taking photos, like the actual taking of the moment for me. When I first ever photographed a wedding, which would have been a family wedding, and I would have just gone off with the camera as a 12-year-old, not getting any attention, but just trying to story tell in my way. And I would see something and I would shoot it. And it wasn't the taking of the photo that really mattered to me, but it was the reaction of those who were in the photo when they saw the photo and they saw something that they weren't offered by their photographer. They saw a moment that was captured that really told a story of their special day. So it captured something special for them and emotive to them, and it made me feel like I could offer something in that way to the world. Ask me the question again. I have to be okay with admitting that I'm a technical photographer first. I like things to look and feel good, but that's actually just a reflection of my character and personality. If you look at the inside of my car or whatever, my office, it's neat and it's good and everything's in line. That's a part of me. And I've always brought that into my photography. So that's a big part of the story. But obviously, that's a visual, very surface level thing. Beneath that and beyond that is what I've had to explore and develop further as I've gone through my career. And that is largely about chasing a story, a human story. At every point, I'm chasing the authenticity of that human story. And there's normally some level of passion from my subjects that I'm chasing. Honesty and integrity and truth are super important to me in that moment. It's very normal for people to display themselves in a certain way to me because it's how they think they should be captured. So a big part of my story as a creative is telling other people's stories in a creatively, visually pleasing manner that's technically good in the way I think of things as technically good. But honesty and integrity have to be paramount throughout the whole journey. Let's talk about AI. I worry about that to some degree every single day. And it's not just in photography, in general. We live in a time when truth is not an absolute kind of necessity. Truth isn't the kind of default value of society anymore. We have to question anything and everything, and I think more people should be questioning things all the time, but that is exhausting. I crave a time when you saw something and there was no point of view or no part of you that had to question whether it was real or not. So I believe there's probably, actually, I hate to admit it, there's a space for computer-generated imagery out there. Authenticity is a buzzword that's been thrown around the kind of creative industry for a long time. And I always say, so I work a lot in commercial advertising, and I often get commissioned off the back of genuinely authentic images because I've gone out and made them by myself, and what I choose to show people is the most real and authentic thing. But then what gets commissioned by the client is they want something like that. As we move into a world which is more and more artificial, obviously our authenticity becomes way more important. And my hope is that the absolute massive digital noise that we are blasted with every single day. So the answer is I don't know. I wonder, does it really matter if something is real or not? I ponder that question a lot. Obviously, deep down, I think it does matter, but it depends on the application of the image and the context of that image. I saw a clothing company the other day put out an ad, which I could immediately see there was something in it that just felt generated. And then I realized that it was a generated image. And in that moment, that really annoyed me because I felt like they're trying to con me. But they're just trying to sell bikinis. Like, so why does it matter? I guess if you're into buying bikinis, you want to know that bikini really exists and it really fits that certain person in a certain way. And yeah, I've lost my trail of thought there. But Bike Life project, which was captured across Baltimore and New York, that was a personal project of mine, which I was fascinated by, seeing what these cyclists were doing in these cities across the US. As a photographer, I've always been drawn to human stories within subcultures, especially kind of in the urban environment. I'm always fascinated why people come together, any area of kind of community and support that is created because of that. So Bike Life was an interesting one for me, and I first had to make contact via social media with certain key figures in that world, because getting access into that world as someone that wasn't from that world was a challenge. It always is. But when I came to it, that, you know, one of the images you mentioned there, possibly taken in New York, there's a few that come to mind for me, but every one of those images in that series was captured in the moment. But I decided to be in a certain place with a certain person at a certain time of day, on the streets of Manhattan. So there's some level of control. But the way I love to shoot and the way I've always loved to create is I really don't like to storyboard. I don't like to think ahead. For me, it's really important to kind of set some boundaries, get there and play. Like, I have to react. I love to react. Every one of those images in the Bike Life project has some level of reaction in it from me, and spontaneity and chaos. I want to capture some level of humanity and imperfection and something in the moment that I could never have planned for. But everything that I've ever been proud of has come from a reactionary moment to something that's happened that's unplanned. Perhaps planned this image, but something's about to happen and kick off and cause this person to react in a certain way, and that light's going to bounce off that building, and there's a moment, there's a flash over there and there's smoke there, and I'm like, oh, that's it, react. Photography's always been interesting because it is one frame and you've got to tell a story in one frame. And I love to make films where you've got 25 frames in a second, and you can fill in the viewer's mind before and after that frame. But with photography, you create this ambiguity in the storytelling process where the viewer has to kind of see everything that's in that one frame and decide for themselves what might have happened before, what might happen after. And that kind of opens up so many possibilities. I don't think I've ever cried after taking a photo, but I've seen other people cry after me taking a photo in a good way. That could sound like I've just failed. But seeing someone else cry at something I've done, for me personally, I've always seen it as a partnership. It's almost 50-50, and different images, it'll be biased one way or the other, telling their story, but at the same time telling their story in the way that I see it. I'll take that for you, but this is how I see it. It's a collaboration. There's so many moments in life, especially since having kids, there's so many moments that I see with my eyes that I'm like, either I didn't have the camera or a phone, but I also have to be okay with not living in that regret. There's plenty of occasions where I'm like, I didn't get to capture that, but I have to be okay with that. Sometimes I'll even like mimic a shutter with my eyes, like just to really cement that moment, because I'm never gonna be able to see it again. But that's fine, we have to be okay with that. How do I tell a story without a camera? If I didn't have a camera, I think the next thing for me is words. Like, words are a great way to express what I think about things and how I see things. I love writing stuff. I thought of this project because if there were ever an argument against the use of AI, for me this was it. It's a project I shot in very, very rural Ethiopia, and it was the hardest thing I've ever made, physically and emotionally and technically as well. And it was to help tell the story of this problem called podoconiosis, which is a skin disease. For me that's fascinating because I suddenly have an ability, maybe a duty, to go there, take back the story visually, how I see it, and present it to the world to help their cause. That's literally what I saw as my mission. But my plan was always to kind of take it back to the Western world, to go, look, send your money here. You can solve this in a few weeks with the right money, with the right education. You know, it can be solved so quickly. And there's so many things out there, so many big problems that can't be solved. but this is one that could be. And I have the ability and responsibility as a visual storyteller to be able to go there with a charity. That was very physically demanding, very emotionally demanding. I was meeting person after person. I met hundreds, if not thousands of people in shooting that. And I was taking portraits of the part of their body that they were rejected in society for. I was taking portraits of their feet, and then I was taking portraits of their faces. I wanted this. I wanted the world to see this, because all the world sees is that. Of course.